Hi, welcome to Help Solve the Case. This is Christine, retired police detective and sergeant, current law enforcement expert, and forensic genetic genealogist. We are going over the Charlie Kirk preliminary hearing. I know we were supposed to have a live stream tonight on the bullpen, but I've got an emergency. I don't know if I talked to you. I've got an emergency case that I need to work, so I apologize, but I cannot be live tonight. I will try for next week. I will also try for tomorrow, but I wanted to catch you up. And I am not through with watching today. We've got it's DNA day, probably will be tomorrow in the preliminary hearing. So very exciting, lots to tell on that. But I wanted to at least catch you up on what we had talked about. So today, day two, we had Detective Hull back on the stand. Okay. He currently works for the Utah Post, the Police Officer Standards Training Agency. But before that, he worked for DPS and he was the case agent on the scene. So when we left yesterday, they were talking about this video that was a compilation of the Utah Valley University surveillance showing what Detective Hull identified who he believed was Mr. Robinson, and he had identified it as Mr. Robinson. And let me just interject. My goal here is to bring you all this court information. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I apologize for not being able to go live, but duty calls. I would love it if you would subscribe. Working hard to grow the channel to a minimum of 1,000 subscribers so that I can do more work on these cases for our unidentified humans and our victims. All right, so thank you. So they had this video that they were talking about, which was a compilation of different video surveillance from the campus that the prosecution had put together, and they had zoomed in on some areas. They had put some red little highlights like, look here. And the defense said, no way, it was altered and all this stuff. And so they had recess to fix it overnight. And so Detective Hull is back on the stand, and he's asked, quote, does it capture Mr. Robinson? Quote, yes, it does. And more back and forth, objection to the publication of this. The defense was saying that it is going to play a big role in the case. This video purportedly to be the defendant, allegedly the defendant, Mr. Robinson, right? So the defense is like all kinds of talking about prejudicing the jury, inflammatory, all kinds of stuff. The judge tried to calm things down at the beginning and say, look, all these objections and everything, it's on the record. You can object if you want, but can we make this go a little smoother? So I do have to say that attorneys are being very professional from some stuff that I've seen, but yes, it is objection central. Okay. So they talk about the publication. We had again David Rima. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. He pops in for the media and talks about spectators having a right to see this item. Okay. Now, as a victim, we may not like that. As a prosecutor or defense, well, probably as a defense, we may not like that. But as watchers, as we're watching, yeah, we want to see that stuff. So thank you, Mr. Rama, for popping in. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know who's right. They're citing, court rules, state statutes, and all kinds of things. So they're just talking about this. Mr. Rama was talking about the rules, and all sorts of this stuff. So this video pertains to what they described as from September 10th, 2025 into the early morning hours of September 11th, 2025, the movement of the individual believed to be Mr. Robinson. Okay. They cited some case law. If you want to watch some case law, Algiers, again, Kern versus the Tribune. And they talk about, quote, prosecution bias. The defense was talking about that there has been a prosecution bias on the coverage in the news. They were pleading with the judge, saying, look, Your Honor, you've already ruled on this. And that was apparently at a different hearing or a different pleading. They were saying that there's this bias already, that the judge has determined that. And look, this is just going to continue. They said, the judge, you have found that the publicity has likely reached the jurors, or that it is going to be likely to reach the jurors. And they did a survey, apparently, that it has affected the jury pool. So, what does that mean? It's going to get moved. It's going to be inability to get a fair trial. Is it going to be an appeal? Like all kinds of stuff already. And we're only at the preliminary hearing. Okay. So, they talked about this surveillance. Okay, Detective Hull again is on the stand, Agent Hull, whatever his identification is. He talked about how he originally focused on the roof. They were working backwards and forwards because once they saw this individual on the roof, this unknown individual on the roof, he said he worked backward and forward during the known time frames to try to identify, the what is it? Ingress, I think, is the in, right? Getting to the roof, and the egress going from the roof. Could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he said that philosophy applied, using the timeline where the person came from more so, and where he went was more limited. Okay, so that they had more footage or more details on where this roof individual came from than where he went. They talked about how they had tracked that Mr. Robinson, right? I'm going to say allegedly, but I'm not going to keep repeating that, because according to Agent Hull, Mr. Robinson is their guy, okay? That Mr. Robinson had visited 4 times to the campus during this event series, okay? Before the event and after the event, before the arrest. And they tracked him through video, 4 videos. They also, Detective Hall said that there is also more footage than in this compilation. Okay, so the compilation, here's what it consists of. It did get omitted. Part of it got omitted, not the overlaid part, the one with the zoom in, which we'll get to that, but it did get omitted. So we'll see it somehow. Somebody will request it potentially, and we'll see it published. Okay. So he says they played the video, and he started going over the video. So here's what I could see. The video, if you're watching it, is played over to the side. It's kind of hard to see if they don't zoom in well. At 8:29 a.m., into the parking garage, there's a vehicle coming in. And the state asked the detective, how did he identify that that was Mr. Robinson's vehicle? And he said through DL, driver's license, and motor vehicle records, and the shape and the wheels of the vehicle, quote, very distinctive, end quote. We see a person, according to the detective, Mr. Robinson, wearing a red t-shirt, shorts, and shoes. He goes into the campus. Again, this is 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, goes into the campus and talks to TPUSA folks in the amphitheater area. Okay, so this has been identified in the surveillance video. At 9:25 a.m., apparently, according to Detective Hull, he goes back to his vehicle. And at 9:33, the vehicle exits. Now, at 10 a.m., it's hard to understand. I was looking at the tape, trying to figure out the time. Somehow he's in the area of the neighborhood in the Northeast. It was a little unclear. And then he apparently, Mr. Robinson, again, according to the detective, goes to the Chick-fil-A. And then at 10:09, goes upstairs in the garage to around prior to 11 a.m. or something was going on prior to 11 a.m. I'm not exactly sure when the Chick-fil-A and all that was happening. It was confusing. They were zooming in on the video and going back and forth, and it was hard to tell. At 11:53, they said this subject went across the campus drive into the wooded area and had no backpack. He was wearing jeans and a long t-shirt. And the detective said, quote, "It's the same person," end quote. They oh no, sorry, he came across from across Campus Drive from the wooded area. I apologize. They said he was now, quote, "walking with gait or a limp," and you can see it. It's visible on the camera the way this person was walking. At 11:56, he goes up into the parking structure. At 12:15, he's seen on the low side building rolling over the railing. At 12:23, 12:22, crouching down. And then at 12:23:28, okay, he stands up, goes behind the atrium, that's what they called it on the top, goes to the northeast corner, is seen jumping down towards Campus Drive. He drops down into the wooded area, okay? They said he went then they see him again at night. He's on Campus Drive. And he actually, I did not know this. Again, I haven't followed the case too much. At 12:30 was stopped by Officer Goforth. And he was trying to, it looks like, again, I'm not that familiar with the campus, was trying to turn into the campus or turn into the area. He was stopped. You can kind of see the officer on the corner and the security detail because the campus was sealed off. And so then he went straight ahead. And this was Officer Goforth with Spanish Fork PD. He was stopped. And he spoke to Officer Goforth. And according to Detective Hall, Officer Goforth's cop intuition, that's a quote, told him something was up. And let me tell you, when you feel it, you don't know it. You just, people think we're all kinds of weird, but we get gut feelings and information all the time. It's just crazy. So, Officer Goforth, God bless him, made a note of the license plate. And then later, when they heard the name and the suspect description, he ran the tag. He got a partial tag, ran it, and was visually able to ID Robinson from the driver's license. So Robinson was actually, before turning himself in, made contact with a police officer at the campus. Crazy. Did you know that? I did not. Okay. Talk about he must have been freaking out. Was he there to get the gun? Whatever was going on. Man, if Officer Goforth was able to, I don't know, push that intuition further, always interesting to me. Okay. Your gut is always right. The vehicle came back to Tyler and Amber Robinson and quote, this is what Detective Hall said, a male he believed to be Tyler Robinson. This was according to Detective or Officer Goforth. All right. So now they're trying to admit this video and they're going back and forth between the state wanted both videos entered. The one without the doodads, without the circles, and without the zoom did get admitted. They wanted the other one. And they went back and forth. There is so much arguing back and forth. It takes so much time. I would be surprised if we're going to get done with this in a week because they keep haranguing each other on this stuff. No disrespect to the lawyers, but the state wanted the video with the zoom in there because they said it was needed to see when the subject was on the roof because the camera was such a distance away, apparent to the other camera. So what they did was the judge decided that the judge would view it. He viewed the Zoom one, and as of right now, we didn't get to see that one. We saw the regular one without the Zoom and without the red circles. So, okay. So I've got this whole argument written. They were talking about it enhances parts. Let me go here. Okay. Okay. So then once they got done arguing about that, Detective Hull says, they're talking about that, quote, it's apparent Mr. Robinson, the person jumping off the roof, is carrying an item. Okay. Now I remember when this happened, people were like, is that the person? Is that not the person? What happened to the gun? Where was the gun? Did he have the gun? Did he drop the gun? Did he take the gun apart? Like, where was the gun? He didn't have the gun when he was on the roof. That's not him jumping off the, okay? All that stuff. So they're saying that with this Zoom, it is very clear. So hopefully at some time, the jurors or somebody else, because one thing that was very important, what the state was saying, because of the software and the camera, I guess you could only zoom in the camera at the time you captured it or something. You can't zoom later. Like there is no way on your computer zooming it, you're going to be able to zoom it with the clarity. So somehow it only came with the software at that time. And what the state was trying to say, the way I understood it, is like if you, Your Honor, if you don't admit this one with the zoom in it, we're not going to be able to zoom it and the jury's not going to be able to see it clearly. So, I mean, in the court, in the trial and stuff, we use stuff all the time to Zoom and computers and all that stuff. So I don't know how they're not going to get that in, or if they're going to have to go back to the security software and see if they can resume it. Like, I have no idea. But the question, if you're the prosecution and you can't get that in, how detrimental is that going to be to your case if they can't adequately identify the person when the Zoom would have helped them identify the person? Same way as the defense is like, we don't want the Zoom, right? They want it to be vague, right? So they just went all over the place. Um, so then the defense came back on to cross-examine Detective Hull again. She asked when he had left the SBI. He said in March of 2026. So he was involved with the Charlie Kirk case, Tyler Robinson case, from September to March of 2026. See, lots of notes. And she asked him, so she said, so you currently investigate the wrongdoing of police officers, which is true. That's what one of the things that post can do. Um, he said that he was not involved with anything to do with the Charlie Kirk event prior to getting the call, and that he arrived on scene, quote, shortly after 1:30, end quote. Asked about drones. Nope, no, he wasn't involved with the drones. And she asked him, which I thought was an interesting question, how quickly did you know that you were in charge? And he said it wasn't until 2:30. Okay. So quite a few hours of, I've heard the word chaos, pandemonium. I don't know who was doing what. So it wasn't until 2:30. So and he said here, man, there were, or was that yesterday? Thousands of officers came. Like, I can't even imagine. I don't know who was in charge. That would be a good question, who is in charge, because I can just imagine it was pandemonium and somebody always needs to be in charge. So that's kind of crazy. Um, she asked him then, once he got in charge, what was his first priority? And he said, putting together an investigative team, right? Assigning the roles. He talked about that yesterday. Developing initial assignments and making a plan, what they were going to do. She also asked him if preserving the scene was important for forensic evidence. And she talked about Agent Falmina, who was assigned to, quote, process and document, end quote. And she asked Hull if known scenes were contained. And he said, yes, they were contained, the known scenes that they knew at the time, right? Which probably doesn't include the woods. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Were, oops, sorry, I wrote them down. Amphitheater, roof, and the side of the building, the low side building. She then asks, which was interesting, we talked about this yesterday, what about another bullet that was found? And he said, um, I believe that an unfired bullet had been found. And um, it was, quote, accounted for, and it was, quote, an ejected cartridge from an officer who had cycled his rifle, end quote. Um, so in essence, an officer, we don't know when, who, uh, anything like that, but according to Agent Hull, it happened when an officer cycled his rifle, and we don't have too much more on that. He doesn't know what type of round it was. He doesn't know where it is. He doesn't know where it was. Um, and then they talked about how the quote entire amphitheater was cordoned off. So, what do you feel about this round? Um, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with that? With that answer? I don't know. Who would you ask? Are you comfortable with that? She then asked, the defense asked, did he hear that there was an individual taken into custody? He said yes, that he had no interaction with the defendant, and that the information was only passed down. He said he was on campus then. Um, so then um, they're talking about, she's asking this defense, asking Agent Hull, Detective Hull, whatever his title is, about the other person that was taken into custody immediately, right? We heard that yesterday. And she says, so they got it wrong. And he doesn't even address that. He says, quote, the person I believe to be the shooter was not the individual taken into custody. So that's interesting from a cop perspective, right? He's got his theory, he's got his probable cause. Somebody else had probable cause at the time, whatever happened. We still have this holster floating around on the amphitheater. Now we've got an unspent bullet on a roof, unspent shell. What, like, I don't know. So she also asked if anybody else was arrested or whatever happened. And he said, quote, there were several people who were detained for questioning and who were interviewed throughout the investigation. What's the defense looking for? The defense is trying to make sure that they got the right guy. They're probably looking for the SOD defense. Some other dude did it, right? SODD. Some other dude did it. I guess you could say SOD. Some other dude did it, but that's what they're asking, right? And we've got, I mean, we're doing probable cause here, but think about reasonable doubt. Think about reasonable doubt. If you were the jury right now, which we're not, we're just playing a game here. If you were the jury right now with a holster and a bullet and someone else arrested immediately, what do you think? We haven't gotten to the DNA yet, okay? What do you think? All right. So the defense then asked him, were there any other guns? And he says, quote, there were other firearms that were located on scene. Yes, end quote. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's not the cops, right? So she asked how many were confiscated. He says that there was a firearm found in a backpack, a handgun. And he objected to the word confiscated. He didn't like that word confiscated. Nothing was confiscated. So then she starts asking about the Noah Gonzalez interview. And she says he's an off-duty trooper. He was there. She's asking about he recovered the holster, actually a gun. And he was not there. He doesn't know anything about that. So is that our holster now that has a gun? Okay. Right? Remember, we have this holster on the amphitheater that Officer Bagley and maybe the chief or some other random dude um, in plain clothes with a gun and a badge, which could be Noah Gonzalez. Like, I don't know. We still don't know who all these people are. That we heard that was a empty concealed holster. Okay. Now we're hearing somebody, Noah Gonzalez, found a gun and a holster. Like, so is that another one? And we got a bullet. Okay. I'm doing my best here. Doing my best. We're taking it as it comes. Okay. So now they're looking at this report over the interview with Trooper Gonzalez. It says, quote, Trooper Gonzalez included in his report that there was a gun, end quote. That's all we got. I don't know. Y'all know anything about that? I don't know anything about that. Now, the trooper, not sure he works for. Troopers usually work for the public safety. I'm not sure. Okay. Then she asks, when did you go up on the roof? And he says, quote, it was dark, end quote. So the first time he's on the roof, it was dark. Quote, later that evening, end quote. She asks, did they find bullets or casings on the roof of the low side building? He says no. She then starts asking him about a timeline, and she goes to a report. And on page 2 of a report drafted 9/14 of 25, they're going back and forth about a timeline created. Apparently, Detective Hull referenced a timeline created by Sergeant Bricker. And she's asking him about that. And he says, quote, no, I created a timeline, end quote, over the course of the investigation. So I'm thinking potentially, I didn't see it, that there was something fudgy, not fudgy, interesting in this timeline referenced by Sergeant Bricker. She was going to try to nail him with it. And he was like, no, I created my timeline after I had all the information, right? Remember, he said over the investigation. So something, she's looking at the timeline for something, right? When we have these hearings and stuff, each side is going, why are they asking that? What, it's like chess. What is the sneak attack that's coming? Why are they looking at that? All right. So then, talking about as of September 14th, Tyler Robinson had already turned himself in. I'm not sure why the September 14th date, maybe because of the timeline. I don't know where she was going with that. So she says, this is the defense attorney, prior to the timeline, he turned himself in. Prior to creating Detective Hull, prior to the time he created his own timeline, that's where she was going with that. Tyler had turned himself in. She said, you did not know who the shooter was. He says, quote, we had identified a person of interest, but we did not specifically know who the shooter was at that time. So there's something she's itching on the timeline from Sergeant Bricker or something there that I have a feeling. So then she says, how did you know about the shooter? And he said it was on the second night of the investigation and the information had funneled through. So he was probably at the university. The information had funneled through from Washington County to the command center and was broadcast or whatever. So she then asked him if there was anything. She says, right, there's nothing to ID any person on the roof. He says, a pattern on the shirt. So, but she says then, but before he turned himself in, um, how did you know that? And he says, well, the stairwell video was released. So in the stairwell, when you watch it, when the suspect comes back, originally the person that Hull is saying is Tyler Robinson was in a red shirt, shorts, and sneakers and a hat. When he came back, this same allegedly Tyler Robinson, he was wearing I remember a dark shirt with something on the front, maybe jeans or dark pants, okay? And so that photo on the stairwell, he said that photo, that video of the stairwell was released to the public. So there was some sort of graphic on there. Um, and so then she asked him, were you able to identify the shooter by the video of the roof as a standalone by itself? Okay, so that's just that portion, I believe, when the person climbs up, gets the perch, as they call it, shoots, and then goes off the roof. Okay, and that's the video with the zoom issue. That's very far away. Um, then they talk about spectators, that there's some spectators um, photographed or got a video of somebody, two young men got a video of the shooter on the roof 10 seconds before. And it wasn't taken by him. He says, not by me. And we don't see this. We don't learn anything there. He did not review the video. She does ask him questions though, because she said something about when they made the statement, right? So she was asking Detective Hull if he interviewed these people. This is interesting. And he said no, he was not present. But he said something about in the report that they saw at the time the person on the roof, and they thought, and this is what he called it, he sounds British, quote, police overwatch, end quote. So that would have been like a police sniper or somebody that was protecting the overwatch, the scene. Okay. And she said something about they were talking about his build. And so I thought maybe I didn't write it down. There was some discrepancy there, apparently, that the defense was trying to go after. But that's all we got. Okay. Then she talks about after the person jumps down from the roof, they're going, out the thing, crossing over, going down towards this campus drive. We can see a video of the person going down the sidewalk, and then two cars apparently pass in front. And she asks the detective, is he holding a gun? And he says, quote, he's carrying an object in his hand that's concealed or in a bag, and it is long, and it has the appearance, based on my training and experience, it could be a firearm. Okay. But then she comes back and says, well, if, nobody reported, oh my God, there's a guy walking down the street with a gun. And he says no. Right? Okay. Because, I mean, you can see it in the video if you watch the video. Then she asks, how long between when the person was prone, like from watching the video, how long between the time when the person was prone and the shot? And he says 15 to 30 seconds. Well, at first he says he's unsure. She's asking him to try to pin it down. He's like, you got to measure the video, like use the video, which is true because the video will do it. Then they started going back and forth about this video under the breezeway that was behind the stage, right? So if we're looking out, Charlie's tent is here, the crowd is out here, so it's facing this way. Apparently there was a camera behind there, and there was a in addition to the tent, say if this is the tent, right? This is the tent. There was a backdrop back there that was blocking it up. And they keep saying this. They keep saying this in this case, and every time it really hurts me. The defense said, she's asking if that no one was behind the tent at the time the shot was fired. And then she says, quote, dead center. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the second time that they've said that. I don't know if it's a Freudian slip, but they're talking about right before he gets shot. And it's like, could we please, not use that word. It just sounds inappropriate. I know they're doing it innocently, but man, they keep saying it twice. It's like, oh, every time you hear it. But so it was very unclear to me. That they're obviously, this is the defense, so they're picking at something. We don't know what. Now, he's testifying here. He's under oath, so he's testifying. So they're going to try to, the goal on the defense side is to nail them into a story and then to be able to impeach the witness and criticize them based on a misstatement made before, now, at trial, witness interview, pre-trial. I don't know, if this is just a preliminary hearing, they haven't interviewed witnesses or done anything, whatever. They are trying to nail him down. Okay. When you testify, you want to be as succinct as possible. You want to, so many times I see the officers do not watch their body cam, do not read their reports, and they make horrible, horrible, unintentional errors that can skew the whole case. Okay. So the defense, I have a feeling here that they're going for something. When he testified yesterday, he said that Charlie was sitting, that this backdrop, this banner was hooked to the tent or something. He said yesterday Charlie was sitting dead center. Then she's saying something about him being dead center. Again, that word. And they're talking about she showed him the thing. There was a videographer on the side. And I have a quote here, no one in the middle behind the tent. She's asking about the videos provided by Visual Impulse, who was the people that videotape for Charlie Kirk. So I don't know what she's getting at. She's fishing hard. Okay, she's got something up her craw over there, and we don't know what it is. So um so he answered that the other angles from Video Impulse were not shown in the preliminary. Okay, so something's in hide. I'm telling you, something's in. She's going after something. Then she asked, "Were you involved when the gun was located in the woods?" And he said no. He was notified when it was recovered. She asked if he boxed or shipped it. He said no. She asked if he was present at the autopsy. He said no, but he met with the ME after. She was very specific about sharing information with the medical examiner, and he said, I did not share any details of the investigation with the medical examiner. She has him pull up, I think it was the face sheet or whatever, where the medical examiner says, I was told blah, 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 or whatever about the investigation, which I'm assuming she's going to go about prejudice, which prejudicial information, which made the medical examiner biased or whatever in making his independent determination about the cause and manner of death, that it impeded him, or he, tunnel vision or whatever. But he said Detective Hall was very clear. I didn't share any information. Then they talk about, did he get fingerprints and photos on the CD? Did he get anything else? He says he got some evidence, fragments, personal items. She says, how many fragments? He said he doesn't know. Then they were talking about Mrs. Noble again. We talked about that yesterday. That was the video outside the people's house when allegedly Mr. Robinson went back to pick up the gun or whatever that night. The defense was trying to say that he interviewed her, and he said no, the only thing we were there was to get this 1102 form, which was the statement needed to introduce this evidence here. So the defense then brings up item number 48. It says Miss Noble's interview, and she asked him, and this is okay, remember, let me preface this with, he's watched all this video, he's seen the driver's license, he's seen all this stuff, and it was Tyler Robinson that came back to the house and blah, 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 right? That's the story we've heard up till now. Well, get ready. So she says, in your report, in the things you've talked about, you case agent, I mean, she didn't say that. I'm saying that. You didn't mention that she said that the driver of the vehicle was bald. Huh? I know, that's what I said. She said you did not mention that she said there were three other people in the car. Did you hear that? I didn't hear that either. That was like it. It was like, okay, sneaky, sneaky. Chess game, I'm telling you. Then the defense asked, did you have canines sniff the area? And he says they may have been used. He's not sure. She asked, when was the tent removed? He says, maybe a few days. Then she asked him, did you give them permission to pave over the dirt? And he said, I have no idea. Like, who did that? So, did you know that? It's like the Coburger house. They just mow the house down. So they paved over it apparently. Well, what would be in dirt? Fragments, casings, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. Were people stealing dirt as a souvenir? I mean, who knows? I don't know. Crazy. Weird questions. Then she asked about did they receive a lot of tips before the arrest? He said yes. She asked about did he know that there were death threats about to Mr. Kirk about that. Yes, he received online death threats. That they received the DPS, the police received all kinds of information. They received suggestions. They got tips on the death threats. They got tips on the suspect. They got all this stuff. And he said that it was, so she was asking him if he like personally reviewed all this. And he said, no, it came in through the state. The analyst looked at it and then it filtered down. So some of it he looked at and some of it he didn't. So she said, did you get the tips of the suspect from the police? Yes. Then like that, they left it there. Then she says, that, he's talking to him about how Tyler Robinson turned himself in, uh, and that the individual that talked to Tyler Robinson about turning himself in was known to the family. Did he know that? Did he know that he was a Boy Scout leader, that he was Tyler Robinson's Boy Scout leader, that no police went to arrest him, that he voluntarily drove down? She's asking these questions. So think about like, what does that matter except for people listening? Um, he said after he turned himself in, that was the first time that he had known his name. He did not ever meet with Robinson. Um, then she asked him, did you know that Tyler Robinson did exactly what he said he was going to do, that he was going to turn himself in? So I don't know if she's trying to rehabilitate him here or what. Then the state came back. They talked about this unfired bullet. He said that, so Detective Hull said that prior to his arrival, it was a quote, dynamic and active scene, end quote, and that the goal of the massive police presence there was clearing and securing the entire campus. So I'm thinking that the state's trying to show that all this was going on and somebody could have cleared their gun and overlooked it because it's chaos and I don't know, whatever's going on. The state asked him what type of cops were there. He said local specialty teams. What do they carry? A sidearm, a rifle too. He talked about how he, as a agent with DPS, he carries a sidearm and a rifle, and that most police carry it cruiser ready, which is no round chambered. So that means if they go out and they're ready to shoot, they got a chamber around. But cruiser ready for the car means that you have to unchamber the round that's in there. And that could have been, I'm assuming where they're going, that could have been where that round came from. Like they didn't really stitch that together too well. My question was, did they get the bullet? Did they test the bullet? Does it match police ammunition? Because police, we typically have different types of ammunition, right? That would be really great, like they do with the taser, if they could tag the gunpowder or whatever, so we automatically know friendly fire, not friendly fire, who did it or whatever. I don't know, maybe they do that. I haven't heard of that. But I'm asking, did they test the bullet? The defense should be asking, did they test the bullet? Is it a cop bullet? How do we know? Is it a cop bullet or is it someone else's bullet? Um, the state then asked him when could he clearly see the gun in the hand, and he said while the part on the low side building was zoomed in the zoomed in version, right? That to get and see close. Um, they talk about the person landing on the grass, right? So they have the gun, they land on the grass, and Detective Hall says he either drops the gun or crouches and has some type of long black item in his hand. They go to talking about this banner. Again, this is with this where the defense was talking about this banner in this breezeway. I'm telling you, I don't know, something's funky there. The state is saying, tell me about the banner. I said, you can't see through the banner. You can't see from the audience side. You can't see from the breezeway side. You cannot see Mr. Kirk. So I don't know if they're going to talk about an alternate shooter, someone that the defense sees in the video. I don't know, but they're talking about that. So the state says, what was going on behind the banner, people moving, quote, to and fro, that there was, quote, consistent movement. They talked about the wooded area, how Detective Hull on the video watched Mr. Robinson enter on the second visit, watched him on the first visit and then the second visit when the incident took place, and that, quote, they appeared to be the same, end quote, referring to the wooded area where the gun was found and the wooded area seen on the video. They talk about the rifle was discovered on the 10th. The state asked him if he followed up on tips. He said yes, they were managed by law enforcement. He did not do a lot of them personally, that the tips were followed up on and reported to him. Of course, he's the case agent. Something about Mr. Robinson's voluntary surrendering in southern Utah. Why did he do that? The detective said he was told that by that immediate family, that Mr. Robinson told immediate family he was involved and they wanted to turn him in. The state then asked that while watching the video of the low side building with the person on the roof, was the person walking or running with a limp? And the detective said no. So then they started a huge argument about another 1102 statement. And these 1102 forms are statements authenticating events or evidence. And these 1102s, this is my interpretation for what's going on. There was an 1102 from somebody, Mr. Engelhart, with Turning Point USA. And this was very long and drawn out and tedious, but it was very interesting from a legal perspective, in that one of the three of the counts carry the enhancement, right? I don't want to say hate crime. That's not the right one. That's not the right wording, but we talked about those enhancements based on, I'll say, and it's the wrong word, antagonism towards Mr. Kirk's lifestyle or political or personal beliefs or whatever, right? That Mr. Robinson allegedly had. But what was the interesting thing here was that there was this whole statement by this Mr. Engelhart. And Mr. Engelhart was apparently did some work for TPUSA and was a pastor and whatever. And they were going back and forth and they were arguing whether he was an expert or not. And if he was an expert, then he would have to physically testify instead of using hearsay. And that hearsay is typically not included, allowed, except in a preliminary hearing. Apparently it is. So they were going back and forth about whether he was an expert or whether he was not. They were talking about quoting the documents. Then they said the documents hadn't been admitted into evidence and all this stuff back and forth. But the interesting part of it was, what I caught was the defense, right? Because remember, we talked about you have to meet all the elements of the crime. And the elements is this special circumstance, right? The state was talking about having this Mr. Engelhardt. Well, Mr. Kirk believes in this, Mr. Kirk believes in that, Mr. TBUSA believes in this, da 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 da, quoting stuff from the Bible, religion, this whole thing. Objection, objection, rejection, objection. Like, it was crazy. Took a long time. I have like 2 pages of notes, but the gist of it, what I thought was important was, and they were going to close the session. The defense was saying the state has to prove that it was in Mr. Robinson's mind, that it's not what was in Mr. Kirk's mind. It's what was in Mr. Robinson's mind. And the defense is saying this form here is not proving that. It's talking about what Mr. Kirk thought and believed and lived and created. It's not what Mr. Robinson thought about Mr. Kirk, right or wrong. And I thought that was interesting because when we talk about intent to murder or intent to batter or what was in the criminal's mind at the time, knew or should have known, that type of thing. I don't even know if the state caught that. Like, I caught that, and I haven't read, they were talking about 76.3, 203.14. They were talking about the fact that, and the rule that the burden of the state to meet the element, it has to demonstrate that Mr. Robinson exhibited this, whatever we want to call it, hate, bias, derision for whatever, about Mr. Kirk. Not that Mr. Kirk had it, that Mr. Robinson knew it and hated it or whatever, for shorthand. Hopefully I'm making sense. And I don't think we got past that. So there was a whole lot of argument, and I'm wondering how, and the defense kind of said it, outside of this form, like, we're just talking about this form, outside of this form, they may be able to show that, but right now, and I don't, the state was so wrapped up in that, I don't know if they caught that. And so I'm trying to think, the only thing I thought about was the text messages. The only thing I can think, if there's social posts or something, how they're going to overcome that hurdle, they might not get that enhancement. So I thought it was very, very interesting there. They said, okay, so here's the defense. There is nothing in that document, Mr. Engelhardt's document, that is connecting with Mr. Robinson's state of mind. Where is the evidence in this document Robinson was aware of Kirk's views? Nothing connects with the state of mind, which is the enhancement. And there's 3 enhancements for that. So we'll see. Okay. So they brought on Sergeant Jen Fall Molina from Utah DPS, and she's a sergeant in the investigations division, and she did the crime scene and physical evidence on September 10th, 2025. She says she's the team lead for the evidence response team, which they will call the ERT. She said at the time there were multiple scenes And there was evidence on the loci building roof. She said there was a screwdriver that went to the Utah Bureau of Forensics State Crime Lab, and then the FBI took custody. It was sent for testing to the FBI crime lab. Then, in the wooded area, there was a long gun wrapped in a dark colored towel. It was a Mauser 98 rifle, retrofitted, which I thought was interesting because we've had a lot of in the news speculation about the caliber and all that, retrofitted to a 30-06 barrel, bolt action. She said it was documented in place, which I thought was interesting. Remember when we talked yesterday and I said all those pictures that they presented, all the evidence already had evidence tags on it. It was not pure as it lay. Maybe they have photos of that. We didn't see that. But here she said specifically, she didn't say it about the screwdriver, but here she said it was documented in place. Then it was rendered safe and it was packaged, the towel and the gun. The gun went to the FBI and then to the ATF lab, and the towel went to the FBI, and then the screwdriver went to the FBI. All right. And then we get to they interrupted their own thing to bring on a defense witness, Amanda Baker, from the FBI. Get that? So that the defense is calling the FBI witness, and it was so interesting, and I have so much to say on that. You know, I love DNA. I'm so surprised. I didn't realize it was DNA day today. That was scheduled for way later. So I'm going to save that so I can watch it in depth. We've got a lot to talk about on that. So we're going to end here, but what they had to do is they had to take off Sergeant Philomena and put in I think, I don't know if she's an agent. I think she's just a civilian, Amanda Baker, to go over the DNA. So my next video will be going over specifically the DNA and catching up with the rest of this hearing. But it's been very, very interesting. Again, sorry I couldn't be live. Hopefully you like this. I would love a subscribe. Please comment. Let me know what you would like to see, and I will see you on the next video. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you later.